Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some consequences for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading you the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. This post was triggered by Too Hot, Too Heavy. The original OP is sued wife account posted on r/relationship advice September 4th, 2019. My 36 male, wife 33 female was sued. I'm feeling resentment towards her and I don't know how to move past it. For what it's worth, this is not a post asking for any legal or financial advice. We already have a lawyer and have help financially. No offense to Reddit, but I'd rather not get any legal advice from a forum. But I'm okay getting relationship advice, it seems. As the title states, my wife was recently sued. She lost, and we had to pay. The money is a significant amount for us. We didn't have much in savings or our emergency fund to begin with, and both of those accounts are now empty. My current problem is trying to move past the resentment and anger I'm feeling towards my wife. Until now, I've always felt like we were a partnership in our marriage, but since I'm the breadwinner, I can't help but to feel I'm spending my, in quotes, money on something that isn't my fault. I've had no problem paying the mortgage and taking care of various financial burdens that come with being a married homeowner. However, I've been the only one to put money aside in our savings and other accounts to prepare for an emergency, like a totaled car, someone loses their job, medical bills, or an act of God. Not a stupid lawsuit where I know my wife is guilty. She has a part-time job and doesn't make much money, but pays for smaller things when she can, like groceries and some random bills. But she does take care of a lot of cooking, cleaning, and caring for our pets. What did my wife do? Note, I had no idea this was going on while it was happening. She used LinkedIn to find her former ex-best friend. She ended up creating a realistic-looking fake LinkedIn profile with a vague occupation of recruiter. My wife ended up sending this ex-best friend, Laura, a few messages pretending to be a recruiter in her line of work. Laura finally responded, thinking that this recruiter was real. My wife wanted her phone number, but Laura gave her a personal email address instead. My wife created a second fake LinkedIn profile and started to send messages to people with similar titles as Laura at her company. These messages said derogatory things about Laura, a mixture of truthful things but embarrassing, and just fabricated bullshit to make Laura look bad. Her manager got one of these messages that claimed that Laura was a heavy drug user. Laura's manager talked to her about these messages, and he felt like the messages were bizarre and seemed like someone was trying to troll or harass Laura. Well, Laura's team had her back and helped her save these messages. Not only that, but Laura requested that she be drug tested anyway, to provide further evidence that she was clean. My wife didn't know this at this point, but Laura was pregnant. Several of her coworkers, including her manager, testified on Laura's behalf. Using the personal email address she got from the fake recruiter profile, she was able to find a few social media platforms Laura was on and was able to figure out her husband's name. She did some more internet sleuthing and found Laura's husband on Facebook. Laura's husband didn't have much on his Facebook profile, but you could see his business and email address on it. My wife sent him an email claiming that Laura was cheating on him. The husband confronted Laura about this email, and Laura encouraged him to keep responding to this person and save the messages, as well as to start asking specific questions about this supposed affair. My wife thought she was being clever and ended up telling the husband that Laura was cheating on him during the work week. She even gave him specific dates. What she didn't realize was Laura had something turned on in Google Maps where it keeps years worth of historical GPS data. Some of the dates my wife gave him also happened to be days where they both worked from home together. She also ended up giving him dates during a time they were on vacation together. Laura had her husband keep responding as much as possible to my wife and to back up all correspondence. My wife was able to find out when and where the baby shower was going to be. One of Laura's friends had created a public registry for her and had the invitation online. My wife decided to show up unannounced. The baby shower took place in a semi-public place. They had rented out an area connected to the public business. She did not make herself known immediately. Instead, she looked for patrons that were entering and exiting the rented-out room. She was able to get the attention of a few guests that had never met her and tried to gossip about Laura. My wife was telling people that Laura didn't actually know who the father was, among other things. This was at an event where her husband was at as well. The word got back around to Laura, and she spotted my wife and apparently immediately put together all the pieces of what happened. I'm leaving a fair amount of information out. My wife was able to find phone numbers, social media accounts, and emails for other people in Laura's circle and sent them messages about Laura on multiple occasions. All the messages were trying to paint Laura in an extremely derogatory light. All the events I've mentioned so far took place over a year or so. My wife didn't think to mask her IP address, so it was pretty easy to find out that all of these made-up messages came from the same IP address. Ours. Many of Laura's friends and family testified on her behalf. Laura had everyone save as much digital evidence as possible, and it was a lot. Laura and her husband hired a lawyer and decided to sue my wife. They had ample evidence against her. All the saved messages, close friends, and even her manager spoke on her behalf. She showed that she went to see a therapist once all the harassment started because she was depressed and anxious. She showed that she and her husband went to counseling after the accusations of her cheating. She even went above and beyond and had more drug tests done to show she was clean, and my wife's accusations were 100% false, and even had a paternity test done to show that my wife was again wrong and chose to lie. I honestly felt awful for Laura. There were lots of tears on her end. You could tell how much emotional stress she had gone through. She said that being pregnant during the majority of this was absolutely horrific and was worried that stress and anxiety would somehow hurt her baby. She was pained that her one and only baby shower was ruined by my wife, and that was something that could never be truly repaid or made up for, and that my wife's harassment continued even after Laura gave birth and was trying to manage a newborn child. My wife has never done anything this crazy before. I knew she could be a little petty and jealous of others, especially people she used to be friends with in the past, but it was only talk, no action. We've had a very happy marriage otherwise. We rarely fight, have a lot in common, we have a lot of fun together, but she really fucked up this time. I don't know how to move forward. I know someone's going to suggest therapy, but I really want to start building up an emergency fund again. We're pretty screwed financially for a while. Too long didn't read, wife was sued by her former best friend. I emptied out all our savings and sold a few things to pay for everything. I need help managing my resentment towards my wife and to move past this. Funds are low and we can't afford therapy right now. What can we do to move forward? I guess before we get to the second update as kind of a soft bit of conversational and something to think about here, is this something that you would divorce or leave your significant other over? Because for me, if I found out that my significant other was capable of this level of hatred and animosity for what seems to be no reason, I would definitely struggle being comfortable in a relationship with them. Already been there, done that! Update, December 4th, 2019. 3 months later. By the time I was able to respond to my first post, it became locked. I read everyone's replies, and thank you to those who responded with good advice. I got a lot of DMs, and I wasn't able to respond to everyone, but I did read your messages. However, I did not appreciate the many comments that simply insulted my wife. I know she fucked up, and I'm still very angry at her, but I want to believe she can heal and become a better person. Also, some of the DMs I got were extremely weird and hateful towards women in general, like stuff you see on the incel tiers sub. Y'all need more help than me and my wife. There were some common questions I wanted to address to provide additional clarification. How did she avoid jail? I only mentioned the civil case since I felt it was the most appropriate to write about because I was originally angry about our financial situation. There was also a criminal case. Our lawyer thought she would originally have to go to jail for 3 months. However, we were able to get her punishment to be community service instead. She has a lot of community service hours to fill within a year. She will also be getting visits from a parole officer. Laura and her husband did file a restraining order against her. I honestly can't blame them for that. It helped my wife that she had a clean record and has family that works in law enforcement. I want her to finish those community service hours before we talk about her working more hours to help pay me back. Why did she do this to Laura? This is a good question. I asked her this multiple times over the past several months to try to understand what this woman did to my wife. She would tell me that Laura deserved everything horrible that my wife did to her, that Laura was a shitty person, a narcissist, a liar, and just overall a scumbag. But she never really gave specific examples. I've been pressing her for more info, and when she told me some specifics, it made me feel sick to my stomach. Not because of what Laura did, but because of how far my wife decided to go due to some petty things that happened in their friendship. Their friendship ended about 8 to 9. They had been friends since early in high school, years ago. And it was over a man they had both briefly dated. My wife dated Matt for a few months. She broke up with him because she thought that Matt had feelings for Laura. Laura said she didn't want to date Matt because he had dated my wife. My wife decided to test her friend Laura's loyalty and told Laura she had her blessing to date Matt. Laura and Matt ended up dating for a few months. My wife stuck around while they were dating, and once they broke up, my wife told Laura that she had failed a loyalty test. They fought, and ultimately it was Laura who decided to end the friendship. Note, in case it's not clear, Laura's current husband is not Matt. Secondly, I was able to get some information from her about what inspired her to do this, since their friendship had ended so long ago. My wife said she happened to see, by chance, not by stalking, Laura at a restaurant about 1.5 to 2 years ago, and it looked like Laura had lost a lot of weight and was fit. My wife and I are both fairly overweight, and apparently Laura used to be overweight too. My wife admitted that she felt angry that Laura had lost a lot of weight while she had never been able to. My wife was also insulting Laura and said that she doesn't make a pretty thin person, and that her new muscular body was too masculine. She also insulted Laura's husband's looks and physique as well. I saw both Laura and her husband in person on multiple occasions. They both look like normal, attractive people who obviously work out. I could also tell my wife was irritated when she saw Laura at the courthouse the first time, and you could barely tell that Laura had even had a baby. My wife admitted that she just wanted to do some snooping to try to find that Laura wasn't doing well in life. She found the opposite and was jealous of Laura's success. She first found out both of their job titles, they both work at tech companies with some sort of engineering title, and their estimated salaries by using something called Glassdoor. And if that's accurate, then both Laura and her husband make really good money. She also saw a photo on Facebook of Laura and her husband standing in front of what appeared to be their very beautiful and large home. She said she was angry because she knew that Laura wasn't deserving any of this. She proceeded to insult Laura about how she's not that smart, not pretty, not responsible. She claimed that all Laura did through college was do drugs, drink, have sex with anything that had a penis, skip class, and failed a lot. My wife said that she's the type who would cheat on her husband, that she's manipulative, and is always up to something, etc. Both Laura and her husband seemed very sad and exhausted throughout the whole ordeal. I never picked up on anything sinister from Laura at all. I felt absolutely awful for her. I felt extreme shame and embarrassment whenever I was in the same room with Laura and her husband. I don't think I was ever able to make direct eye contact with either of them. So yeah, I was expecting Laura to have done something truly evil or sinister in the past, and that just wasn't the case. Does she feel remorseful? I want to say yes, she does. She's been really depressed since this all finalized. However, I can't help but to think she's sad only because she got caught. She hasn't directly said anything that would lead me to believe she is truly remorseful. She's still angry at Laura for escalating to the point of a criminal and civil case. She feels that Laura overreacted. My wife believes every horrible thing she said about Laura. She's convinced that Laura is some kind of alcoholic/drug addict who cheats on her husband and is the type to lie and cheat her way to the top of her career. And somehow, Laura is able to hide this from everyone in her life. My wife felt like she was trying to expose Laura for the monster that she is. She feels that Laura pressing charges and suing her is additional proof that Laura is vindictive. My hope is that she has time to think while she's doing her community service hours over the next year. I think she feels bad that I had to empty out our accounts and sell some things to come up with the money. I talked to her about working more hours once she's finished community service, and she agreed. Are you going to get divorced? The thought has crossed my mind, but we've been together for so long, and I still love her despite this disgusting thing she has done. I can't see my life without her, but I know, and I'm having a hard time admitting this to myself, that if she doesn't improve or learn a lesson from this mess, then I can't be with her anymore. A lot of people mention that if she can do this type of thing to an ex-friend, then she can do the same to an ex-husband. This has worried me some. I'd like to believe she wouldn't go nuclear on me if we did file for divorce. I'll be taking precautions in case I have to defend myself in the future. Real quick, as just kind of a general note here, if you find yourself in a relationship where the idea of ending said relationship requires you to make some kind of mitigation plan in case they lash out against you publicly, yeah, that relationship is already done for. Because that means that you know what they're capable of and who that person is. You're just staying in the relationship in hopes that ire doesn't get turned onto you. Why is she only working part-time? She's a licensed masseuse and works at a really nice salon/spa. Her hourly wage is pretty high, but she hasn't been able to get the hours she wants at the spa she works at. She could probably get a more full-time position at a different spa, but with a slightly lower hourly rate, which would still bring in more income than what she is doing right now. She really likes the place she's at and doesn't want to leave, but I may pressure her to work full-time elsewhere to help pay me back and refill our emergency fund when she's done with community service. At the moment, she's on board with helping me put money back into our savings accounts. What about therapy? I know we need this, both as a couple and as individuals, to deal with this mess. I talked to her about this, and she doesn't seem totally sold on the idea of therapy. I've expressed that I think it would help both of us, and she seems indifferent at this point. I've talked to her parents, who are really angry/disappointed in her. They basically begged me not to leave her over this. I told her parents that I think therapy would help both of us, but I can't afford it now. They offered to pay for couples therapy, but that is as much as they would be able to afford. So it's a start. I know my wife will need individual therapy, and it means I stop going to couples therapy so she can get the one-on-one help she needs, so be it. I'm not ready to call my wife a psychopath, as many of the commenters did the last post. I think she got carried away and thought she was trying to expose someone she truly believed was a bad person. I'm heavily leaning towards that she has had some sort of mental breakdown and focused all of her energy on this one woman and her life. I'm not going to give up on my wife yet. It's very possible that she has some underlying mental illnesses that could very well be treated with therapy or meds. How much was she sued for? I don't want to give specific numbers, but it'll take about 4 to 5 years to get back to where we were prior to this happening. If my wife takes on a full-time after she's done with community service and hands over the majority of her paycheck, it may take less than 4 years. Are kids involved? No, we don't have kids and are not planning on having any. What's next? That's what I need help with. I've sat down with my wife a few times since the post, and I can feel some resistance coming from her about starting couples therapy. I think she's irritated at her parents for offering to pay for therapy for us. She's stated that she would rather us solve our problems together without interference from someone she doesn't know. She's afraid she isn't going to like any therapist we find, and that the therapist will attack her throughout our sessions. I've tried explaining to her that the therapist isn't there to blame anyone, that they would try to help us, and that it would be a safe space for her to talk about and vent about whatever she needs. I've brought up the idea of therapy every night since the post, and each time she has had an excuse along the lines of, "It won't help, the therapist will gang up on her, she isn't going to like the therapist, the therapist won't like her, or that we can solve our own problems at home." Too long didn't read, I answered a bunch of questions I wasn't able to get to before my first post was locked, but I really need help pushing my wife to get therapy. She is resistant and isn't convinced it will help us. Personally, I don't believe for a second that she genuinely believes that she was trying to stop someone who's a monster, just for the simple fact of her reaction to being sued, of it being a overreaction to her actions. I have the sneaking suspicion that if you were actively harassing someone because you felt that they deserved it, you probably wouldn't have the mindset that they overreacted, you'd probably have the mindset that they got away with being a monster. On top of that, the catalyst for all of this was the fact that OP's wife gave her permission to date the guy that they both kind of had like a little fling with. And then upon her breaking up with said guy, she then was like, "Oh, you failed my friendship test?" And Laura was like, "Oh, that's fucked up. I don't want to be your friend anymore." Like, she gave out a friendship test under the guise of it being explicit permission to do something. And then for nearly a decade, she held a grudge over that, to the point where she's now harassing a pregnant, expecting mother who has her life together, who's pushing forward and doing everything she can to better her life, and is now being harassed via high school bullying methods by her ex-best friend, who is going through extreme lengths to try to ruin her life. And she admitted that it was because she was jealous that Laura was actually doing well in life. So she wanted to knock it down because she was jealous. I understand why OP is taking the approach that he is, but I severely disagree with it because all of the red flags in my eyes are right there, and I've played this game and I never want to play it again. But I really hope that if she continued to refuse any kind of couples therapy, that OP bit the bullet and walked away, and didn't continue to put up with the idea of, "Oh, we'll just handle this ourselves." Well, handling it ourselves made us lose our savings account in our emergency fund. So maybe we do need that third-party input. Just saying. Also, I kind of feel that her being afraid the therapist will gang up on her is somewhat an admission that she knows what she did was wrong. But the additional fact that she's not willing to say it or admit it says that she's not sorry for what she did. I don't know if that makes sense. I may not be explaining that properly. It's a bit of a jump and definitely a tinfoil hat theory, but still a thought I might as well share. This post was collected by Choice Evidence 1983, and their tagline is, "It dawned on me that he was a wizard." The original OP is "Shitty Mom, Throwaway." Posted to r/amItheasshole, June 30th, 2024. Am I the asshole for not telling my parents that the event they were missing was my wedding? Buckle up, guys, this will be kinda long. So I, 27 female, have a younger brother, Mike, 21 male. He is the definition of a man-child and a mama's boy. Always complaining, always expecting others to bow to him, just overall, an asshole. Ever since he was born, my parents fussed over him for everything. He's not special needs, or had a traumatic birth, or anything of the sort. He was just born, and my parents completely discarded me. My mom, 50 female, especially. She went from a loving mother to one of those boy moms that people make fun of on the internet. My father, 50 male, still showed me love and support, but he's always been too much of a coward to stand up to my mother and let me win, at least once. The only one who stood up for me was my grandpa, 76 male, who always called my parents out on their bullshit and never liked my brother. I remind him of his late wife, my grandma, and we have a very special bond. But he lives on the other side of the country, and I could never see him often. Mike knows our mom prefers him and loves to shove it in my face. Because of this and his behavior, we've always been at odds. He's spoiled, a brat, and an awful human. I can't remember how many times I ended up in trouble for things I did better than him or for things he framed me with. His only talent are his football skills. He won a scholarship to a nice college at his state. My parents didn't spend a dime on my education because apparently my fund had to be used to cover expenses after a fire, just for me to discover years later that said money was given to Mike to buy a car and a house. It's at public university that I met Lucas. He was the first person I was really drawn to there. Of course, I met new people who are now my dearest friends, and thanks to them and Lucas, who was now my best friend for years before we got together, I managed to move out of my parents' house. Now, both Lucas and I are well known in our fields and have very good salaries. Now, to the main issue. Lucas proposed to me a year ago. We're very private people, so we didn't post it on social media or anything. And when I told my parents, they dismissed it with "That's nice." I'm starting to think they downright didn't listen to me at all. We decided that we wanted a nice but simple ceremony and reception with our friends and relatives. Lucas convinced me to invite my parents and brother, but they never responded to the invite. And whenever I went to visit and began talking about my wedding, without mentioning it was a wedding, my mom would always speak over me and about my brother's accomplishments and wild adventures. At one point, I got fed up with it and interrupted my mom to tell her that there was an event I was planning to organize whose date was unmovable. She told me that they couldn't attend because my brother was playing the last game of the season that very day and wanted them to be there. Of course, this favoritism didn't surprise me. They missed my ballets, shows, and both my high school and university graduation for things about him. At this point, I wanted to be petty. I told both my parents that it wasn't a problem to miss this event, purposely omitted the fact that this event was my wedding, and didn't insist further. Flash forward to a few weeks ago. I got married. It was perfect. My family, Lucas's family, and our friends were all there, and we had a blast. My grandpa was happy to give me away, and it was just perfect. My relatives asked me multiple times why my parents weren't there with us. I was honest and simply said they had my brother's game to attend and couldn't come. They gave me a few looks, and my grandpa was visibly angry for a while, but otherwise, nothing strange happened. After the reception, Lucas and I left for our honeymoon, and were phone-free for the whole duration of the trip. But once we got back, we discovered that a shitstorm was welcoming us home. I turned my phone on, and was unable to even unlock it before a storm of notifications popped up. Most of them were from my mother and brother. Mike called me all sorts of nasty names and insulted me because apparently one of my paternal aunts posted the photos of the wedding on Facebook and captioned it with a very obvious dig at my parents, especially my mom, for missing the wedding. The post apparently went viral in my parents' community, and they've been publicly shamed for their mistreatment of me. It also turns out that my grandpa personally visited my parents to go on a tirade to shame my father, his son, to the point of tears. And this seemed to be my father's breaking point, because he was so distraught for missing his only daughter's wedding and for his father's disapproval that he finally rebelled against my mom and is threatening divorce unless she makes it up to me. I think that's the reason why my mom has been spamming my phone with messages. At first insulting and threatening, and then downright pitiful, full of begging and pity parties. Now I'm at home with my husband deciding how to approach the situation. Most of my relatives, even those I didn't invite to the wedding, reached out to apologize for what I went through and to claim they had no idea this was happening at home. I can't blame any of my relatives. They all live with my grandpa on the other side of the country or in another state. But my mom's sisters and friends are belittling me for not telling my mom about the wedding, because now she's inconsolable at the thought of having missed my wedding. Personally, I think she just claims that to save face, but I'm not sure. The latest messages from my father and mother seem extremely saddened and hurt from missing my wedding. Now my family is divided on 3 fronts. The majority, who is sticking by my side, my maternal aunts, shaming me for hurting my mom's feelings, and my maternal grandparents, who are adamant that I forgive my mom in light of her atonement. My best friends are telling me not to listen to them. So, Reddit, am I the asshole? Too long didn't read since some of you guys want the juice without reading the post. My parents have preferred my younger brother over me my entire life, and prioritized his events over mine. I got engaged and told everyone, but was dismissed. I sent a wedding invitation to my parents and double-checked, but they didn't respond. When I told them the date, they told me my brother had a game they had to attend. I didn't repeat that it was my wedding during the exchange and told them that they weren't missing anything. I had my wedding, and now my parents are receiving backlash from my relatives and community after my aunt posted a dig at my mother. Edit. Thank you so much for the feedback and love. It's overwhelming. I'm going to address the popular questions here. 1. I did inform my parents about my wedding. I sent traditional on-paper invites to all my guests and was notified that all invites had reached their addresses. I did not receive any answer from my parents and Mike, a few very distant relatives, and some people on Lucas's side. I did reach out to all of them through message to double check, and those who hadn't replied told me they couldn't come. I asked my parents and brother via text, but they didn't respond. I was left on red. Knowing them, and given all the things I had to plan, I didn't bother insisting. 2. I didn't repeat the date of my wedding because I had already been told there was my brother's game. Plus, every time I insisted on highlighting my celebrations to get an answer, I was always told that it wasn't that important, and to not be pissy and a bother, because some things were simply more important than me. At this point, I think it's fair for me to not insist anymore. It's not worth the effort. 3. I didn't keep my wedding a secret. I avoided telling my parents that it was my wedding to see if they would be interested in the slightest, but surprise, surprise, they weren't. Despite this, I did openly talk about my wedding with my aunts and uncles. My mother was in the room with us a few times when I discussed venues or dress shops with my aunt, the Facebook post one. But sometimes mom was on the phone, and other times she was just chatting with other people. She never paid attention. When I talked about it during reunions, she smiled and said, "That's great, dear," and then would change the subject. Radio silence on Dad and Mike. 4. I kept in contact with them because, well, all the times I tried to go no contact in the past years, I've been harassed. I tried after my high school, bachelor's, and master's graduations, to which they never bothered to show up for reasons involving my brother. Every time I was shamed for daring to turn my back on family by my parents, my brother, my maternal aunts, and my maternal grandparents. I think the turning point here is that all those times Lucas wasn't by my side. We started dating a little after my last attempt at going no contact, and now that I have him here, I feel more confident in my stance. But before that, I wasn't this confident. As I already stated, all my paternal side lives on the other side of the country, and wasn't aware of how they treated me. I did try to expose my parents once, at 14. My aunts, uncles, and grandpa reprimanded them. They faked being sorry, and then, once home, I got the beating and gaslighting of my life for lying. After that, I kept in contact regularly with my paternal side, but omitted my parents' abuse out of fear, which, to be honest, still haunts me to this day. Only Grandpa knew, but he was always threatened to be alienated from me if he tried anything. 5. My parents and I are not from the same city. I live in a city an hour drive from my parents' small town, and they don't know my new address because once, my brother tried to break in my apartment to steal some cash, and my mother backed him up, claiming that siblings share their goods. Now I moved, and I'll be sure not to tell them where I live. 6. My parents didn't buy my brother a car and a house before he even started high school. They bought him a car for his 16th birthday, and a house near his college when he began freshman year. They didn't spend the money on my fund right away. They just lied to me to use it later for my brother, keeping it stored for later in the meantime. Edit 2, update is posted. Am I the asshole with an H has no consensus bot, but OP was not the asshole. Relevant comments! Here to kill Euronymous. Do you think it would have been different if they knew it was a wedding and not just an event? OP responds, well, I'm pretty certain my parents would have been a handful at my wedding anyway. They did ruin a cousin's wedding by making it all about how my brother had just given his first university exam, and he got drunk and trashed part of the cake. So I'm wondering what made me want to add them to the guest list in the first place, but then again, in my family, going no contact or even limited contact is considered shameful. The cousin whose wedding Mike trashed cut my family off, and they've been dragged for turning their back on family over a minor accident. OP on her father missing her wedding and why it was a big deal for him. OP responds, giving daughters away is a big deal on my father's side of the family. He only has me, and has made it a big deal since birth despite how he treated me. Appearances, that's what matters. Make of this whatever you wish to make it. Update, July 9th, 2024. First of all, I want to thank all those who were interested in my story and those who wish me and my husband a happy life. I am beyond grateful for your reassuring messages and your love and feedback. The response was overwhelming and beyond what I ever thought it could be. I love you all so much. To those who believe my story is fake, I want to say that I am happy your family life is better than mine. To the point of thinking of my reality as a fantasy, but I'd appreciate it if you stop harassing me in DMs, claiming that I'm writing a fake story for attention. If I've missed a few details in the original post, it's because I was overwhelmed and crying my eyes out because of my family's harassment. You are not forced to read my story or think it's true, but I think keeping the smallest amount of decency would be nice. Oh, and before diving in the update, let me clarify a few things. 1. Yes, the invitation specifically stated it was a wedding. No excuses. 2. My maternal side of the family didn't come to the wedding. I'm sorry I didn't make that clear in the original post. Most of them were busy and the others just gave me excuses to send a gift but not come. That's it. Don't ask me why they didn't discuss my wedding with my mom. It's not like I live in their brain. 3. My mother's atonement is the fact that she apologized via text. Skull emoji. Now, onto the update. Things have been a little crazy this past week. I got off Reddit for a couple of days to gather my thoughts, then I had a lengthy conversation with Lucas about how to proceed. He's been my rock, and I don't think I could ever love him more than I already do. My parents were always a taboo topic, but he hit me with a brutal reality check that I absolutely needed. We reached the conclusion that the fact I kept in contact all this time, stuck around, and didn't go no contact isn't healthy. I realized that the reason I never fully went no contact was that deep down, I just wanted their approval. Even now, for once. Pathetic, I know. But it's like a drug, being with my parents. They can be loving, funny, caring, and warm. Until they're not. The little love they give makes you crave for more, and you want their approval so badly, you destroy yourself. But that's not enough. I promised myself that things were going to change. I thought about it and decided to start therapy and to go no contact with all those who made an issue about this situation. For good this time. After the days dedicated on reflecting on how I feel, I ended up messaging my father to tell him that if he wanted to talk, I would meet him, Mom, and Mike in a neutral location the following day. He immediately replied and agreed, and we met at the park. My father's sisters and brother accompanied us for damage control. My father looked distraught and as if he had been crying for a while. My mom looked the same, but I think it was more out of anger and embarrassment. My brother looked annoyed. I told the three of them about how their behavior and preference in regards of my brother always hurt me, and that their abusive behavior made me realize that I didn't want contact with any of them again after that meeting. My mother tried to cut me off multiple times, but my aunt, the one who posted on Facebook, shut her up every single time. When I asked them why would they treat me this way, they didn't know what to say. My father kept crying and apologizing without giving me an answer, and my uncle reprimanded him for it. My mother seemed as if she was asking herself that for the first time, but, well, in the end, she just said that she simply disliked me. Plain and simple. And my brother, he just liked the attention and making me miserable as some kind of sport. I went on with my questions. When I asked why they never responded to my invite, they claimed to have never received one. I showed them the texts, but they denied receiving them. And well, it turns out they hadn't, in fact, received my wedding invitation. When it arrived to their house, they weren't there. The only one in the house was my brother, who had come visiting for the weekend. He saw the invite and, as many of you guessed, ripped it up and trashed it. And then, when I texted my parents, he deleted the messages. It wasn't hard to do. According to him, they kept my chat archived and didn't get the notification. So my parents never actually got a formal invitation. I was just distraught. I asked Mike why he would do that, and he just shrugged and claimed that it wasn't as important as the stuff they had in program anyway. I had to stop Lucas from punching him in the face. Strangely enough, my parents were upset and started reprimanding him. He actually began to throw a tantrum and cry crocodile tears, and I must admit that I was kind of satisfied. But then my mom claimed that all was resolved and there was no need to fuss over a misunderstanding, and it was time for me to clear their name. That set me off, and I interrupted her, telling her that they weren't forgiven at all, that just because Mike trashed the invite, it didn't mean it automatically canceled all their neglect out. Plus, all that time, it was still very obvious that I was having a wedding, and they should have asked about it. You want to know my mother's response? She said something along the lines of, "I did hear you talking about a wedding of yours, but I just thought you were being delusional and seeking my attention with exaggerated scenarios." She was convinced Lucas didn't actually like me, nor would ever marry me. When I tell you I was about to trash her face, do you believe me? Another thing came up. It turns out that my brother didn't have a football game to go to at all. My parents used the fact that my husband, friends, and I know little to nothing about football, we prefer soccer, and the fact that I stopped asking about it when Mike would mock me during his time in high school, to make up a story to avoid my event. At the time I wrote the original post, I couldn't confirm or deny the presence of a game because my brother has private social media and Lucas and I are blocked, and I foolishly trusted my parents' word. But no. You want to know where they were with that man-child? They went to Disneyland because Mike wanted to go. They used the football story to cover for my brother's 100th tantrum holiday, and apparently they did it multiple times in the past months. At that point, I was just completely burnt out and overwhelmed by this amount of information. The fact that I had been fooled this badly, that I was so gullible, genuinely made my blood boil, and I snapped. I stood up and told my father he was a sad, weak man, unable to stand up for his kids unless his wife approved it. I told my brother he was a little dipshit, a poor excuse of a man that will not accomplish anything in his life, and that he'll always live like the leech he is, baby to the point of uselessness. And to my mom, I just told her that she was the worst narcissist, pathetic little woman on the earth, that she didn't even deserve to be addressed and judged for her irrelevance, that not even God could help her out because she's just too rotten. Harsh, I know. My mother shot up from her seat to scream at me halfway through my rant to her, but I was just too mad. I shouted at her to shut the fuck up and sit down, and listen for once. She got so mad it felt like steam was coming out of her ears. I don't remember much after that, just that I kept talking and talking. It felt as if all my anger and hurt just flooded out. At one point, I'm pretty sure the whole park was silent. I spat at my parents and Mike that I was disowning them all, and that if they're smart, they'll think before reaching out again. I took my purse and left with Lucas, Anna, and Francis, leaving my parents and brother at my aunt's and uncle's mercy. I think at some point the reality of what I had just learned and said finally hit me because I ended up having a panic attack on the way home. Lucas was driving, so Anna helped me through it until we stopped in a parking lot to calm down. I am beyond grateful for their help. Once home, I just fell in the bed and went to sleep. I really wanted to go with your guys' advice and post the whole thread on Facebook, but given my work and career, I couldn't expose myself like that. One thing is sharing my story from an anonymous throwaway on Reddit. The other is on Facebook with my name and face plastered everywhere. I couldn't go down that path. Instead, I did something better. I made a folder with all of my mother's insults, messages, and awful comments and sent it to the woman in charge of my mom's church. It's a tight-knit community, and my mom worked her ass off to enter in. But that is also extremely judgmental, and being shunned by them is a death sentence. And, well, that's exactly what happened. Just like clockwork, this scandal spread like wildfire, going out of the church and reaching the rest of the small town. You can imagine what this means for my mother and father. Because of my little spill, I did find other messages from my maternal side of the family, belittling me even more for upsetting their sister or daughter and insulting her. I just didn't care anymore at that point. So I followed your guys' advice and told them that from now on they will no longer be part of my life, and that they can talk shit all they want. I just won't care. Instead, they should be grateful I don't send their nasty texts to their employers and spouses. I blocked every single one of them, grandparents included, on everything. I did find a lengthy message from my father. He apologized for not being strong enough to face my mother, agreed that what I said was true, and he couldn't believe that he had lost so much of my life because of her. He told me he's going to divorce her no matter what my decision will be, because he's tired of being controlled. He would like a relationship with me to make up for all the years that passed. I did reply to him, to tell him that as of now, I really don't want to see him or forgive him. He has replied that he'll try his best to win me back, and that he loves me. I replied back that, as of now, I find that hard to believe, and then blocked him too. Frankly, his slimy way of trying to have an out from this situation by throwing my mother under the bus is pathetic. At least she was hateful and owned up to it. He's only able to blame others for his choices. I don't want to surround myself with people like that. My mother and brother are blocked similarly to my maternal side. Mike wrote other messages to taunt and insult me, and I just blocked him. My mom threw herself a pity party for being shunned by her community and for her marriage going into shambles, and I just replied, "Good riddance," before blocking her too. As for my grandpa, he has decided to stay with us for a while, to stick by my side. He really is the best, and has read some of your comments. He isn't going to admit that he's flattered by them. Since then, a few days have passed, and all has been quiet. Lucas is spoiling me rotten, and I'm starting therapy soon. I know this isn't the drama-filled, revengeful update you hope for, but, well, this is it. I'll let you know if anything changes or evolves. Thank you so much for the love and support you showed me. I think I'm going to log out now. As for now, goodbye. Too long didn't read. I've decided to start therapy. I confronted my parents and brother about their behavior and ended up disowning them. I sent my mother's nasty messages to the leader of her church, and now she and her husband are shunned by their community. Relevant comments, T.W. Andrews. Maybe once your father is actually divorced and gone no contact with her and your brother, there's a basis for some rekindling of your relationship, but wow. Opie responds, perhaps, but as of now I don't want to think about it. He's been a supportive dad, but he's never once defended me in his life. His love was unconditional until my mother decided it was in fact conditional, and sometimes it really felt like his love was just something on and off. I don't want to stick around to see when the magic spell will wear off. Editor's note, thank you Kitten, Dylan, Mama for the correction. Anna and Francis are Opie's father's siblings, not her best friend. It's pretty damn telling that when it came out that Mike had actively sabotaged the parents' view of the invites, that their response was, "Oh, it was just a misunderstanding, see?" And not realizing that, wow, our son is actually kind of fucking crazy. Anyways, let's go take him to Disneyland. Woo! I do hope the father is able to separate himself and prove that he is in fact worthy of his daughter's love and actually rebuild that relationship. Because it sounds like he finally did wake up and realized how lumpy the rug in fact was. But like, damn dude, you've got about 21 years of space that you gotta make up for since Mike was born and he became priority number one of the family. And that's even if she allows you to make that time up. The thing is, if this was a different circumstance where it turns out Mike had sabotaged it and the parents wanted to come, but had no idea it was happening and no inkling of an idea that it could be happening, this would be a different story, especially if we didn't have the years of neglect prior. But the fact that OP actively spoke about her wedding around her mother, and to her it was just a delusional eye roll, even with the wedding invitations, I wouldn't be surprised if the parents just eye-rolled it and just thought, oh, it's just her being delusional again, no need to actually take this seriously. Mike doesn't realize it yet, but he is fucked. The amount of reliance he has on his parents, the moment that they are no longer capable of supporting him this way, or they split up, or mom enters a retirement home, or God knows what else might end up happening, the real world is going to be a lot more cruel, and you're going to learn real quick that your job's not going to take kindly to you having a tantrum for a raise, or for a trip to Disneyland, or for a promotion, and rent doesn't get paid with tears, buddy. Congratulations, your parents accidentally raised you to be a raging 21-year-old infant. What a little freak. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget Gamer Subs, use code KEYZ at checkout for 10% off. You get caffeine free, and it's a good way to get 100 servings of 100 milligrams of caffeine for like $36 using code KEYZ at checkout. That's a pretty good deal, considering it can cost you like $5 at the gas station for 200 milligrams of caffeine. So hey, there's something to chew on. Also, about yesterday, I woke up to a bunch of comments calling me colorblind. I promise you, it's green. For some god-awful reason, my phone camera has decided to distort it and make it blue. I don't know why. I really have no idea why it's so blue in the photo. But like, I'm looking at it right now, it's green. Pull my phone out and take a photo, it's blue. I also forgot In my editing process, I keylight them because I make the clips in After Effects and I put them in Premiere. Not the best way to approach it, but it's faster for me because of hotkeys. But in order to do that at an acceptable rate, I use essentially a fake green screen. That's why a few weeks ago, I had an outro that was just so green. But, you know, if you have a photo of a green room and you remove the green in order to remove the background, what's gonna happen? So, bit of an oops on my part there. I was very confused why so many people were telling me that it was blue or that I was colorblind. I promise it's green. When I stream for the first time and I get an actual honest-to-God camera and proper lighting, you will see that fact. That it is indeed green and not blue.